Hello, 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 citizens of Avina Vlogs and my fellow authors and readers out there. Welcome to the Writer's Corner podcast here on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. Welcome to episode 32. Today we are going to be analyzing what makes a villain. As always, we have a little schedule here. We're going to read 4 pop culture headlines. We are going to give an update on my 2016 Wattpad project, Lexington and 5th. And we're going to do a book review. This week we're going to be doing Saint Odd by Dean Koontz. And then we're going to get into the meat of the podcast, which is what makes a good villain. Now, early in this podcast series, I did a very similar headline or theme where I talked about what makes an antagonist. But I do believe there is a difference between an antagonist and a villain. An antagonist doesn't necessarily have to be someone who is evil. It could be just someone who opposes the protagonist. Whereas a villain is someone evil or hell-bent on destruction of some kind. It's not good. So that is what we're going to be doing this week. So let's get right into it, shall we? First, let's head over to our pop culture headlines. First and foremost, one of my most favorite headlines this week. Creed director Ryan Coogler has been confirmed by Marvel to be directing the official Black Panther movie. Now, Black Panther is one of my favorite characters. He's really cool. He's the king of this really awesome nation in the Marvel Universe. He is a lot like Captain America. He's a very honorable, loyal hero. And I'm really looking forward to his inclusion in Civil War. And I'm really glad he's going to be getting his own movie. So, hear the news that they finally have a director means they're moving forward at a good pace. And that we should be getting a Black Panther movie very soon. Headline number 2. There are rumors now for Han Solo casting. Now, keep in mind, none of these names are definitive and might not be Han Solo, but there are 4 names at least. There are 8 total, but here are some of the bigger names. Ansel Elgort, Miles Teller, Dave Franco, and Scott Eastwood are among some of the names mentioned with the Han Solo casting. Now, if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, there is a prequel standalone film in the works for a young Han Solo adventure that would take place before the events of the original film. So, of course, they would need a young Han Solo to replace Harrison Ford's older version. So those are some of the names being associated with Han Solo right now. Of course, someone else could come along and snatch the title, but those are some of the bigger names. Speaking of Star Wars, headline number 3, John Boyega has revealed that Episode 8 is going to be much darker in tone, and which is very exciting and very reminiscent of The Empire Strikes Back, which was definitely a lot darker in the original films. And his role is going to be much more physical this time around, which means that not only is he going to be hitting the gym for this, but we might get to see a lot more action from his character, which is pretty incredible. John Boyega did a great job in this first film, and I can't wait to see what the episode 8 brings. Now, on to our final headline, which is a kind of a sad note, but I think something worth mentioning. Of course, if you haven't heard by now, musician David Bowie has passed away at the age of 69 after a very 18-month-long battle with cancer. He was a wonderful musician, just really was one of a kind. There is no one else like David Bowie, and his passing really does leave a mark on our lives. You know, at one point or another, David Bowie impacted us, whether we realize it or not. And I'll never forget him. He was a great, great musician, and I will get to one of my favorite songs of his in the next portion of our podcast, because one of his songs is one of my favorite songs of all time, and it is this week's Lexington and 5th Song of the Week. So let's get right into it, shall we? Lexington and 5th Week 2 update. In honor of this great legend passing, David Bowie, I picked one of my favorite songs that he did actually with Queen. Him and Freddie Mercury, who also is no longer with us, did a great vocal collaboration on the hit song Under Pressure. It's one of the best songs I've ever heard from both Queen and David Bowie. Their voices just blend well so amazingly, and it's something everyone should hear. So if you haven't heard it for some reason, the song is called Under Pressure. It's from David Bowie and Queen, and it's definitely something you should go check out right now. And of course, if you want to see the songs I pick on this Lexington and 5th project this year, you guys can go head over to my Spotify account and go look up the Lexington and 5th playlist, which will have every week's song. So we have Focus by Ariana Grande in week 1, and this week we have David Bowie and Queen's Under Pressure. Go check those out. Now, the other part of the update is Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is called Theft, I believe. Let me look at it right here. Yeah, it's called Theft. Chapter 2 introduces us to our protagonist, our main character. While this book is going to have many different viewpoints and many different characters, there is one character that kind of stands out above the others. Her name is Ella, and this week is kind of setting up her struggle throughout the book. If you guys remember from week 1, I mentioned how Andrew was getting ready to meet Ella at this area for a date. He's a shy guy, and he's really liked this girl for a long time, and he's setting himself up to go out with her. But things aren't going to turn out to be what they appear, and Ella is going to find out some things have been happening without her knowledge. And Chapter 2 is all about kind of giving a little bit of her backstory while setting up the event that's going to affect the entire book's plot. So, in Chapter 2, we meet Ella. We also meet her best friend, Nina Thompson, and kind of start delving into this very complicated story and this very complicated character that I'm very excited to flesh out and introduce to you guys this year. So yeah, Chapter 2 is all about Ella. Now, that was our Lexington and 5th Week 2 update. Let's move on to item number 3, the Saint Odd review. This week I finished reading Saint Odd by Dean Koontz. It was a great review, or a great book, I have to say. It was a great ending to the saga. And I'm just going to share a few notes with you guys before we move on to our main event of the podcast. So, here is my official Saint Odd review by Dean Koontz. The final adventures of everyone's favorite fry cook who can see the dead has arrived, and Dean Koontz's final Odd Thomas entry, Saint Odd. In this book, you'll see Odd Thomas returning to his hometown of Picomundo. Yet the reunion that he envisioned is not a happy one, as he is sent there on a mission to save his home and the people he loves from a powerful cult that he has dealt with in the past, who has set their sights on the town for a massive, destructive display of power, one that they hope to unleash very quickly. And it's only with Odd's help that they can stop this overwhelming terror from occurring. The book is a beautifully crafted story. It captures the detail of Odd Thomas's final adventure. What stands out to me, in fact, is that Mr. Koontz has included both throwbacks to the series with characters established throughout the entire book collection, and yet has given the story fresh life by exploring the mental state of our hero after years of battling uncounted evil in all its forms. which is something very new to the series and something I really enjoyed, getting to see the mental toll that it must take on a young man to undergo such trials. And yet, while exploring that, the action is so intense and fast paced that that merely makes the story fly by. But at the same time, as well, you can't help but reminisce during certain moments in the story about the deep emotional bonds between Odd and his friends in the town. This book is made for character development. It's really a prime example of character growth and development. And I think fans of the series are really going to love the direction Odd's character takes throughout the whole novel. So, for all you Odd Thomas fans out there, what will Odd Thomas do in this final adventure? What will his final fate be? Find out by picking up your copy of Saint Odd today. This is definitely one of my top picks for books in 2015, and I feel very satisfied that this final entry gave the Odd Thomas series a thrilling conclusion. So there you go, guys. Those were my thoughts on Odd Thomas's final book, Saint Odd by Dean Koontz. Now, let's move on to the main event of the book, or of the podcast. What makes a good villain? We're going to explore a few things that go into creating a truly amazing villain. First, a good backstory. What made this villain the evil force that he is today? Was he or she born evil? Did their parents mess them up royally, whether they were absent or abusive or just gone in general? Did the villain suffer some sort of tragedy that kind of turned them from a good person to evil? These are the things that go into a person's backstory. Some sort of event could have happened to them that led to their transformation. They could have, come into this world with evil, seeping from every pore in their body. This is something that each writer should explore thoroughly before they create their villain. Next, they need motivation. What is a villain's reason for doing what they're doing? Do they want to take over the world? Do they want to see the world burn like the Joker in The Dark Knight? Are they in it for financial gain? Are they in it for power? Is it a sexual motivation? Is it the thrill of the kill? What motivates your villain into being the evil person that they are? You have to find that out. C. What actions do they take in the plot of the story? What is the level of evil that your villain entails? That is C in our actions. Find out what your villain's going to do. Is he a murderer? Is he a master thief? Is he a terrorist? I mean, what is your villain doing throughout this book that makes him evil in the first place? Finally, the balance of power. Your villain has to be equal in force to your hero. Otherwise, it's a very one-sided novelization of your story. Whether you're writing a comic book or a novel, a short story, whatever, your villain has to be equally matched to your hero, or even slightly less than your hero. It has to be pretty close to what your hero's capable of. Because a villain that is almost godlike and unbeatable doesn't make for an interesting story, I don't think, unless you're writing a very dark, unhappy story. I think if you want a very fleshed out character and a very fleshed out story, your villain and your hero, your protagonist, what have you, there needs to be a balance of power there. Even in the comic books, Batman and the Joker is my prime example. No matter how insane the Joker is, he's always balanced out by the Dark Knight's efforts and his never-ending pursuit of justice. He doesn't know the meaning of the word quit, and it's that determination that keeps the balance of power between them going. That's the same reason why the Dark Knight never fully wins over him, because he refuses to kill. And so that gives the Joker an edge that allows him to continue living and escaping to commit his, horrible acts. That is called the balance of power. And then this is an optional category. Let's call it category F in making a good villain. Remorse. Does your villain have remorse? Is this a villain someone who can be redeemed, kind of like the Winter Soldier? Or is it someone like the Joker who doesn't care what he does or she does? And in general, do they have no feelings whatsoever about the horrible acts they're committing? This is category F. Does your villain have remorse? Figure that out before you finish your story and your villain's arc, because you don't want to get to the end and realize you haven't given a satisfying conclusion to your villain's story. So, for a rundown through this checklist, here is the official checklist for making a good villain if you're a writer. A. Backstory. Find out what made your villain in the first place. B. Motivations. What drives your villain to do what he's doing or she's doing. C. Actions. What are they doing throughout the course of this novel or comic book, whatever you're writing? D. Balance of power. What kind of pull does your villain have in relation to your hero or your protagonist? And optionally, B. Remorse. Find out, is your villain going to be sorry about what they've done? Is your villain capable of remorse? Are they redeemable? What kind of remorse factor does your villain have? Find that out. Follow these actions, and you are sure to have a phenomenal villain. That does it here for us, folks, on the official author Anthony Avina, the Writer's Corner podcast. That was episode 32, Making a Villain. On a serious note, real quick, before we end the podcast, I do want to reiterate how deeply saddened we are by the loss of musician David Bowie. He was a phenomenal musician, just an amazing creator in general, truly an inspiration. Even to his last day on this planet, he was in bed writing, even through all the pain. And he wrote his album as a send-off from this world. He's just he was such an amazing person, such a creative force, and he will truly be missed. So, from myself, from my partners over on ONREQUEST magazine, from my YouTube channel, from all of my fellow creators here on YouTube, on SoundCloud and iTunes, and all my fellow writers as well, I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, my thoughts are with the family and friends and loved ones of David Bowie, and with David Bowie himself. Wherever he is, I know he's among the stars, and he is spreading his joy, his creativity, and his goodwill amongst the cosmos. So, thank you, David Bowie, for an amazing life, an amazing career, and for being such an inspiration. That will officially do it for us here at the Writer's Corner podcast. Thank you for listening in. If you listen to this on SoundCloud and iTunes, please leave a review and subscribe to the podcast. It'll mean the world to us. Every criticism or good comment just makes us way better and makes us feel amazing to see your feedback. So please do that. Leave your thoughts. If you're watching this on YouTube, thank you for watching this or listening to this video. In the comments below, on this YouTube video or in the review section of the iCloud or the iTunes and SoundCloud podcast. Let us know, using this checklist, who one of your favorite villains is, and make sure you use the checklist we lined up in the podcast. What is one of your favorite villains of all time? It could be in books, television, movies, comic books, music, even whatever you may look for, even video games. Who is your favorite villain of all time? I gotta say, you heard me mention him a lot. The Joker is definitely one of my favorite villains of all time. But what is one of yours? Tell me in the comment section below. And on YouTube, give this video a big thumbs up. Like this video, comment on it, favorite it, and share it. Check out all our social media links down below in the description box and also in the description of SoundCloud and iTunes podcast. Give this video, or subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already here on YouTube. And check out the Eye in the Sky for today's recommended videos. Thank you so much for listening, guys. And I will see you next week for episode 33 of the Writer's Corner podcast. Long days and pleasant nights, my friends.